Welcome back, YouTube. It's Jafer. If you found your perfect wired mouse, but there's one thing that's wrong with it, and it's that cable, whether it be rubber, that thick braid, or even their own stock manufactured paracord that's just too stiff for you, well, let's go ahead and install a third-party paracord cable. It looks intimidating, but I assure you it is super easy, and I'm going to take you step by step and what you need to accomplish that. So let's get right into it. All right, folks, so number one, you got to have enough of a surface area on a table, your desk, or countertop to really work without being interfered with in any way. Of course, you need your mouse. We're going to go with the NP-01. In my previous video, when I reviewed it, it's a great mouse, but the paracord that's installed from the manufacturer is super stiff. So we went ahead and got with Lethal Gaming Gear. I went with the Starry Night paracord cable. And then also, because this mouse is so new, we had to find a way to find replaceable feet that match it. And luckily, the G-Wolves Skull S Mini is a perfect pairing of mouse feet for this mouse. So we got our mouse, we got our paracord, we got our mouse feet. Last thing we need is tools, because we do have to open this up. And I'm going to link this in the description below. This is a fantastic toolkit. Random Frank P actually recommended it in one of his videos, and so you do have an automatic screwdriver that does have a charging port of a micro USB, and of course you have clockwise and counterclockwise with a light built in, so you can really see what you're doing. You have a carrying case as well as 3 different, I guess, tubes of bits, so that way you can really get the job done in whatever form or fashion. And the nice thing is it does come with a little stand if you end up using this often, and then a magnetizer and an actual magnetic pad to lay your hardware. Last thing I didn't mention in the previous clip, make sure you get yourself a nice pair of tweezers, preferably ones that do have a very sharp pointed edge, as you will need that to get into this. If you look at the bottom of the feet, there's actually a small little slot where you can put a tool and pry open that mouse feet. So let's go ahead and get into that now. And luckily, this is not something that's super difficult to get into, and it just peels right off. Now, some mice are gonna leave a lot of residue, and you wanna make sure you have some alcohol wipes to clean that off. Now let's try to find the actual hardware here in my bin, because this looks like a triangle screw, which is pretty uncommon for the mouse. All right, let's go ahead and unscrew these now. Take note of where you're putting your hardware, because it is important to make sure that we're able to put everything back. The last thing you want to do is get everything done on your mouse and you're not able to find the screws any longer. Now, with a lot of hardware on a gaming mouse, it could be only at the back. It could also be at the front, or if this were to have a information sheet or a sticker showing whatever trademark information, the serial number, things like that, that could also be covering a screw. So depending on the mouse, you definitely want to make sure you do some research to make sure and see where these are going to be. I did see online that it's only at the back end of the NP-01. So let's go ahead and crack it open. You're going to hear plastic. Don't panic when you do that, when you open up your mouse. And there it is right there. So be careful when you're pulling this apart. You don't want to put any stress on those ribbon cables. And there's our cord that we're going to remove right here. All right, now in what used to be normal circumstances, I'd say a year ago, when you're pulling this off, of course you want to be careful each and every time, but as you're running this out from underneath the actual mouse itself, you're going to see where the actual stress relief of the manufacturer serves its purpose, right? Because it keeps the angle of the cable up and everything. Before, you used to have like 3 pieces of heat shrink, and you had to get a lighter, and it was always a pain in the butt because you're going to burn your thumb as you're letting this cool down and you're trying to form it. Pain in the butt. Anyway, Lethal Gaming Gear, with all their paracords, you can actually get a 3D printed stress relief that looks like it came right out of the manufacturer. Like, this is so awesome. No longer do we need to worry about making sure we have a lighter and having to burn ourselves with any heat shrink, and if the heat shrink were to form on the cable incorrectly, nothing like that. So let's go ahead and install this. And of course, whenever you're reinstalling, you want to take note of how that stress relief is made. You can see there's a slot right there. That's where that cable is going to run into the side. And you're going to run the actual cabling within the tunnel or the channel that the manufacturer made. And then of course, you're just going to go ahead and plug that back in. It's going to be really snug. There's only one way to plug it in. So if it's way too difficult for you to be plugging in, then you're doing something wrong and you want to back off and see what's going on. So let's go ahead, and one thing you want to take note is as you're closing it, make sure the stress relief is firmly in its spot. And sometimes you'll get molding that can easily pinch the exposed wiring. So make sure that you're really careful when you put everything back together. Just like that. Let's go ahead, put the hardware in, and put our feet on. All right, guys, once we have our hardware in, we do want to make sure that we plug it in and it works. And you could hear Windows a loud ass alert letting you know that there's new device installed. And let's go ahead and put that feet on. Now, before you put the feet on, you do want to make sure that you clean the surface, because the oil from your hands and whatnot have now touched the area for the feet. And you do get some wipes. So clean that off. Make sure you don't touch the sensor with the wipe. And let this dry, I'd say for just a minute, just to be safe, right? And while I was letting the rear end of the mouse dry, I realized that I can't just put the rear pads on because they are going to be a different thickness than the stock ones. So we went ahead and ripped off the front, cleaned that, let it dry. And now we're at the point where we do want to apply our new feet. Make sure your hands are washed. You don't want anything to be really contaminated with your oil, because it could definitely impact the way that it's going to rest on the mouse itself. And again, regarding this is purely something that Lethal Gaming Gear decided worked really well with the NP-01, because we don't have official third-party feet yet. But if you have a popular mouse that's been out for a while, you will have no problem finding the exact feet for your mouse. You definitely don't want to rush this. You want to make sure that the feet are aligned really well. You can kind of adjust them a little bit once they're on, but if you do apply them and then try to slide them around, you do run the risk of having that adhesive become kind of sticky on the outskirts of the feet, and that's going to pick up on a lot of lint on your mouse pad. All right, and there we have it. We are all set. We've got brand new feet. We've got a brand new paracord. No longer do we need to deal with this super stiff thing right here, which is crazy to think, because this would have been considered really, really great, say 2 years ago, coming from a manufacturer. But now that we do have this, and thanks to the wonders of aftermarket and third-party folks like Lethal Gaming Gear, this mouse is definitely a lot more playable. So this video was definitely not sponsored by them in any way. I just really wanted to make this to show that paracording is super simple, and I've worked with them in the past, and they're just great folks. I'll leave a link in the description below, and if you decide that you want to get a paracord yourself, you can use code JFOR at checkout. It's more of a creator code, so it does definitely support me, and I do appreciate that in every way. Let me know in the comments if you have any questions or any difficulties installing your own paracord mouse and your own paracord cable. And until next time, you guys stay safe out there.